had some good points. I think you raised the volume for you to actually break through a plateau of your own. It's actually a good place to start because volume can actually be a really useful way of doing this. And in fact, if you know anything about there's a lot of programs out there which are called like catch-up programs, where the whole point of them is to try to catch up, lagging muscle groups. And what do they do in those lagging muscle groups, really? What do they do in those programs, rather? And what they do is they just basically they hold the volume on the other muscle groups, at maintenance, basically, and then they rapidly increase or slowly increase, rather, the volume on that muscle group that's lagging. So one thing you can do, obviously, is to increase volume. And so there are ways of doing that. There are different strategies of doing that. I prefer sort of a volume ramping, where you start kind of low and then you kind of ramp your way up. But there's also other ways of breaking plateaus. One I've talked about actually on a recent podcast with Bowtie Docs. And the strategy that I had come up with for this was, so I was stuck on a lot of, like, for my pull downs, for example, like my lat pull downs, they weren't really climbing like they used to be, and I was getting kind of frustrated. And so the way that I had designed my program up until that point was I would hit lat pull downs first in my programming. And so what I then did was I actually ended up changing the order of my exercises around. I went from, so if I were to consider the lat pull down to be my most compound back width exercise, what I would do was I would hit other back width exercises first and push them all the way to the back. This way, by then, the muscle was more fatigued. I wasn't lifting as much weight as I would have with that same movement by the time I reached it. And I did this for like a month, maybe 2 months. And then I reversed the order back around so that the lat pull downs were now first again. And this was one of the ways that I actually like to break plateaus. It was by first reversing the order by going from most complex to least complex. And if you don't know what that means, a highly complex movement might be something like a barbell back squat, a heavy barbell back squat. And like, if you could think of like a less complex quad movement, you can think of something like a leg extension. Well, the idea was that with a barbell back squat, you're really getting a lot of raw stimulus magnitude is really, really high with something like a barbell back squat. So when you hit it first, you're really getting a maximal stimulus for that movement. And then as you progress down and you maybe do like leg presses after, and then after leg presses, you do your leg extensions. It's actually a smart way of approaching your training, because it goes from most complex to least complex. And it kind of aligns with the sort of the fatiguing effect. So as you get more fatigued, you do movements that will fatigue you less. So a barbell back squat might be the most fatiguing thing you can do. A heavy barbell back squat might be the most fatiguing thing you could do. It also happens to be the most stimulating. But if you think about it, the leg press after that is less fatiguing. It's also very stimulating as well, maybe less stimulating. It depends on your perspective or how you do them. But the fatigue aspect is now lower. And then as you go down to the leg extensions, now you're at a minimally fatiguing movement. And the stimulus that you get from a leg extension is not going to be what you're going to get from like a heavy barbell squat. Okay, so that's the from most complex to least complex movement, right? And let's say you want to improve your barbell back squat. So this is a strategy that I've come up with and that I've been using, and it actually works for me, at least. You could try this yourself. So what I'll do then is, for the next month or 2 months, reverse the order of complexity. You start with the leg extensions and you go really hard on them, and then you move on to your leg presses, and then you finish with that movement that you really want to progress on. And by the time you reach that movement in your session, you're going to be able to move that weight a lot less. And in fact, you're going to have to use lower weight to actually get there, but you're still going to be squatting to failure or close to failure. So you're getting really quality sets. So you're still getting a really high stimulus, but you may want to increase the volume slightly on the reverse order. And this is actually, you can actually think of this as like a min-max problem for stimulus and fatigue, that if you reverse the order, you'll probably come away with a lower stimulus magnitude if you keep all the sets the same. But if you increase the sets on the reverse order of less complex to more complex, you increase the volume on that, you could actually get a lot of work done, and you can actually really grow really well on that. But the barbell back squat that you've been kind of stalling out on will actually, you'll be going a lot lighter. But let's say you do this for about a month or 2 months. You come back, you reverse it again to your original order, where let's say you hit barbell back squats first again. Maybe not the first week, but maybe yes, the first week you will come back. There's a lot going on, but it's one strategy that you might come back and you might be a lot stronger. It's worked for me in the past. And it's just a different way of sort of stimulating your muscles. And it kind of, even the mental aspect of switching things up can actually be beneficial in this way as well. Because sometimes it's also, you have to understand that like a lot of this stuff can actually be very, mental. You really want to improve your bench, right? You're really desperate to improve your bench. Well, that desire or that mental block that you create in your head can actually, kind of impede your progress a little bit. Maybe not, it's not necessarily going to happen to you, but you can see that it could happen to you. And so reversing the order on this and allowing yourself to lift for lighter, but still pushing to failure, you can actually maybe come back around. For me personally, this has worked pretty well. So this is a really good strategy that I think if you should implement this. If this makes sense to you, try implementing this with your training. I think that you will find that it actually works. Now, another thing, there's sort of a list. That's a very high level approach. That's a good strategy, but you also have to do a bit of a mental checklist as well, because if your diet is not really up to par, if like you're not getting a really high carb meal before your training, and having a good pre-training meal is a high carb meal, then that could be another aspect. If you're kind of perpetually stressed out, what we're talking about, what we're kind of alluding to here is, your recovery is kind of shit. Are you sleeping well? Is your nutrition on point? How is your stress levels? These things can really actually play a big role in stalling you out. So you want to keep in mind these different aspects as well. And so these are things to keep in mind, and they're really important as well. I mean, having a good pre-workout meal, maybe like 45 minutes to an hour before your training, having proteins, but really the main feature there is the carbs. You really want to be having a lot of carbs before your training, and keep the fats very low, if non-existent at all, because having fat in your stomach when you're training slowly digests. It can really be a drain on you and your energy. So those are some considerations to keep as well. But my initial suggestion for anybody who is struggling with this stuff is to sort of play with the order in which they hit the muscle group. Okay. Sometimes a reason you might not be able to train, or you get stuck on something, is maybe you're hitting the barbell bench later in the session anyway. Maybe you're hitting barbell bench after doing a whole bunch of other stuff. You might want to move that to the front of your training session, and you might want to do a quick little warm up to get the muscles pumped, and then go right into your barbell bench press. So you want to prioritize them earlier in your training when you're really fresh. So these are some ideas that you can play with. It can be pretty simple, really. So make sure your recovery is in top shape. Play around with some of these strategies, playing around with the order of the muscle groups, of the exercises. And I think, lastly, you might want to give it a break. You might want to say, enough barbell bench for now. If barbell bench is the thing that you're trying to improve and you're struggling to improve it, you might want to sideline it for a little bit. Focus on other things that you can improve on and you can increase, you can make improvements on, still hitting the chest, for example. And, maybe do some dumbbells for a while and some machine work and all the rest. Just let it, take a break from it for a little bit, and try to focus on the things that you are progressing with. And you might come back to that and find that you're actually really strong, and that maybe you even just needed a mental break, but also you needed to do things you are progressing on, because sometimes we do stall out on things that we do for too long. So there are actually, if you think about, exercise selection and when you want to, switch out movements, there are three factors really to keep in mind. The number one factor, just to sort of get out of the way, is, are you experiencing like joint pain, or is there discomfort? Are you kind of, feeling a little slightly injured or whatever? That's the number one consideration to sideline that movement. You really, in most case, in basically every case, if you're experiencing joint pain and discomfort, you're going to kind of want to just, without any other consideration, put that to the side and do other exercises that actually fit, do you well. And I know a lot of people have like shoulder issues with bench pressing, if we're going to continue with that example. And so the other consideration, except for actually injury or injury prevention, is actually boredom. There is such thing as getting bored with an exercise and having it sort of just, it's not inspiring anymore. You might want your bench to be really high because the bench is awesome and everybody does a bench. It's kind of like it's one of the big three. It's one of these exercises that, everybody sort of wants to be really strong with. But if you're kind of bored with it, if you're kind of like, frustrated with it and you've been doing it for like 2 years or something like that straight, it might be time to push it to the side. Boredom is another aspect of this. So that's like kind of, I brought up earlier that there's a cognitive element to this. And then third is, this is to the point, are you progressing? And this is kind of the whole point of the discussion as well. And if you're not progressing and you're bored, right? But let's say it's not causing you injury, you have a decision to make, because now it's sort of like, you're not progressing and you're bored of it. That's probably a good reason to switch it up and use a different exercise. You could always come back to it when you're fresh and you really want to hit it again. And you might find that, you're stronger. You broke those plateaus without even doing it. So these are the considerations for changing out exercises. Those are those three factors. So, I guess with that being said, with these, with everything that I've said so far, I mean, I kind of want to open it up to any questions you guys might have, because these are kind of, these are the things you want to consider. I think that these are probably a good starting point. So I see people typing. Did you address leg extension lockout? How does that relate to? Is it dangerous? Oh, you just want to do an AMA, like a genuine AMA, or general AMA? We can do that. Does anybody have any questions related to progression and stalling out on your exercises and not progressing anymore? Does anybody have any questions directed at that? I'll get back to your question though, T-Dog. Like I said, I think a great strategy really is to play around with the order. +1 on switching up the order of your lifts. Exactly, man. It's something I arrived at kind of, not by accident, but I arrived at it via creating programs and understanding that, how to make programs, you have to consider exercise order. And so a lot of my programs that I put out, they usually have 2 blocks separated out by a deload. And each block is in a different order of complexity. So in the first block, usually we'll start off complex and then we'll get down to isolation work. But then the second half of the program, we do isolation to compound. And that makes it so that if you repeat the program, which you kind of should if you like it, that you're kind of switching from compound to isolation. I find this is a great way to continue progressing. So yeah, good comment there. Any other comments or questions? You could even come up if you'd like. You'd raise your hand. Helped me a ton on pull day. I use all my grip on back, and then when I got to biceps, I'd be a little cooked. I would rotate to let other groups get caught up. Yeah, exactly. And see, that's not even that's a different example, but it actually is a good example. It's not always just about complex to less complex, although you can make the argument that that is the case in this case. But really what you're talking about is that you're fatiguing muscle groups that will actually impede the main movement. So if your wrist is done from back day, then yeah, you're going to struggle to do things like, you like deadlifts or something like that. So yeah, good comment. Anybody else? Any other questions or comments on this topic? I hope I kind of addressed this. I don't know if Ethan's in here. Oh, he isn't here. I don't know if he could hear me, but let me go to T-Dog's question about addressing leg extension lockout. Is that dangerous? Leg extension lockout. You mean leg press lockout or leg extension lockout? Because leg extension lockout. Oh, press. Okay. So I'm under the school of thought that doing a leg press and locking out your knees is probably safe. The problem comes when you let go of sort of all tension in that, like Matthew said, Dr. Mike says you can lock out no problem. I tend to agree with Dr. Mike on this. However, there is you have to sort of be, somewhat careful. I don't think most people have to worry about this, but you don't want to get lazy with the lockout because it is kind of a freaky sort of position to be in. But I'm pretty sure the fear of it is overrated. I'll put it that way. It's not that it's not a concern, but the fear of it is overrated. I have to agree with Dr. Mike. It wasn't Francis. I think it was, I forget his name. Oh, it was Dean, Dean Training. I think he was doing this, and I think a few of my friends were like, what the hell? You're locking out your legs. That's dangerous. Like I said, I think the fear of it is overrated, but I think that it's something you don't want to get like, you don't want to let go of all tension. Never really worry or felt anywhere. Yeah, I agree with you. I never really felt too worried about anything like that. Yeah, any other questions? We could just open up to any questions, guys. Any questions you might have, we could just do a general AMA. I feel bad. I don't know if Ethan heard any of this because this was really addressed at his question. But I am recording this, so hopefully he'll get to see this after. What's up, Brian? What's up, Decky? Shill us on the premium membership. Yeah, guys, if you'd like to support the server here, you can become a Gain Trust supporter for $5 a month. If you'd like to become a member and get weekly programming, as well as opening up the member channels, you can become a $25 a month member. The people who do our programs seem to really like them, and they get the results, and they're really, we really put a lot of effort into these, and they're extremely intelligently designed programs, and definitely think it's worth it. Plus, we do some exclusive member stuff as well. Is there any way to work on stabilizer muscles other than just doing the intended exercises, i.e. dumbbell incline? Is there any other way to work stabilizer muscles? Well, you work stabilizer muscles by having a variety of exercises, really. If you're only doing bench press and stuff like that, you'll still progress with your stabilizers because they have to catch up in order for you to progress. So it's going to happen one way or another. But I think having a good variety of exercises is part of how you can work on all muscle groups. And I think that it makes the case for, having a mix of really, like machine work and also some free weight stuff. I think having a good mix is probably important for that. But in terms of any direct stabilizers, I'm not really sure. If you can give me an example, I can maybe give you an example. What's up, Axel? What's up, Kate? Also, guys, just one other thing about the memberships. If you want to join for a more one-on-one, it's not quite, one-on-one coaching, but a more one-on-one approach to the training on the server, then sign up for that and join the rest of the guys who are doing that. We have some exclusive talks that we do for them and some one-on-one check-ins. And we work pretty closely with macros and nutrition. Is there any way to work? Okay, so I already answered that question. I see Decky typing. How do you know when you're spinning your wheels in terms of lifting weight? Is anything about going to failure is it always about going to failure at the upper end of the reps? How do I know if you're spinning your wheels? So you'll know you're spinning your wheels if after a year you kind of look the same and you're kind of lifting around the same. You're spinning your wheels, and you're going to have to sort of assess why that is. In some cases, it can be that you're not lifting with proper intensity. In other cases, it could be that you're not lifting with enough volume. In a lot of cases, however, it's that your nutrition is not locked in and dialed in. You're probably, not I mean you, but I mean the person, who is worried about this, a lot of times, tons of times, people think that they're eating enough, or that they're eating, or they think they're eating too much or whatever, or they're not going through a more traditional diet phase where they cut weight and then they build weight. That's one of the best ways of sort of approaching this, trying to build muscle, get down to really low body fat percentage and then build from there. And you stay within that nice window of 15% body fat, but that requires being meticulous and tracking your nutrition. So nutrition, I would put probably at the top of that list for why someone might be spinning their wheels. If you're not tracking your nutrition and you're kind of eating as you've always ate, there's a very good possibility that you're not getting enough nutrition to build muscle and to progress. And that's one very important factor. Another factor is you're not actually tracking your lifts. You have to be progressively overloading, meaning you have to be adding reps to the exercises. You need to be adding weight. You have to be improving. And if you are improving in your weights and your reps and your weight, and you are moving up and getting stronger, there's no way that you can't be getting bigger. So a good way to know you're spinning your wheels is you're lifting the same, you look the same after a good amount of time. There's a huge one for me. Didn't realize how far I was off protein until I started tracking protein, but even carbs really too. Just calories in general can really make people, and people, they think that, I got a kind of a good idea. I had a chicken earlier, or I had steak today. I'm definitely going to grow. It's like, you have to be tracking that kind of thing. And the good news is that you track long enough, you can eyeball better, but really it's just, you have to always be tracking. It's really the best way to get from point A to point B, but you have to be tracking your exercises as well. I mean, you have to be progressing. And if you're not progressing, if you're just as strong as you were a year ago or 6 months ago, or even 3 months ago, you're spinning your wheels. What gets measured gets managed. That's a great quote. I like this Frisco Smooth guy. Yeah, so any other questions, guys? Hey, I love it. But yeah, guys, what was the lockout talk? Locking out is, the fear of locking out, I think, is overrated. Do I think it's a non-issue entirely? No, but I think the fear of it is overrated. Based and true. So true. I say it all the time. Truly special. Truly. It's a wonderful thing. Based and true. Yep. I see Decky typing. Good question, though, Decky. Any issue with starting the week's workout on Sundays? No, as long as you're... No, not at all. There's nothing special about the day of Monday. As long as you're getting your 4 to 5 days a week in, I'm guaranteed to get the machines I want for push. Yeah, man, definitely. Start on Sundays for sure. Yeah, no problem with that at all. Plus, it's the Sabbath, and I don't know what that means to any of you guys, but it might mean something. I don't know. Maybe that was blasphemous. Maybe I'll just shut up now. Maybe. Any other questions, guys? But hey, good question so far, and I hope that this talk was helpful. I think that again, just to reiterate sort of the initial concern, I think that as long as once you are certain that your nutrition, your sleep, and your stress levels are all taken care of, and you're still not progressing, play around with the order of your lifts. Try to play around for a 2-month period, maybe 1 month period, where you reverse the order. You put that exercise that you really want to progress in, you put it maybe later into the session. You go to failure on it while you're already fatigued. You'll definitely lift with lighter weight. Do that for a month, maybe 2 months. Go back, put that at the start of your session when you're totally fresh, and see how you are there. That's, I think, that's my main suggestion, and that is exercise order. So yeah. Well, if there's no other questions, guys, I guess we could wrap up here, but it was a good conversation. I think that this is probably something that people needed to hear, but yeah, we'll do more of these again in the future. But again, if you're not already a member and signed up, please consider doing so. It helps us do, continue what we're doing and continue to grow. And yeah, if you want to train with us and do our programs, that's a Gain Trust Pro membership. But if you want to get a more one-on-one approach, you can get the premium. So yeah, thanks guys for coming, and we'll wrap it up here. But have a great rest of your night, and keep the gains coming.